This is the brand new 2023 Toyota Corolla, and in this review I'm going to be running you through everything that's new about this car and telling you that why for most people this is even cheaper to run than a fully electric car. So don't go anywhere, but before we get started, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, and for a great deal on your next new car, just head over to whatcar.com or Google What Car Deals. Now, the biggest news for this revised model is actually under here, and it's a new hybrid drivetrain. There's still a 1.8 litre petrol engine, but it's more powerful and it's lighter as well. And that's not all, because the electric motor, that's had some changes as well. And 14% is the number to remember, because it's 14% more powerful, 14% lighter, and electrical losses through the hybrid system are down 14% as well. That should be good news, because on paper at least, it means slightly faster acceleration. We'll be finding out if that's true a little bit later on. If you go for the more expensive 2 litre version, then that's more powerful as well. Power is up from 177 bhp to 193. And that version is actually slightly more efficient as well, although this 1.8 litre model is still the one to go for if you value fuel economy. More on that later. But what else is new? Well, there are some changes to the looks, but it must have taken the design team all of half an hour to make them, because visual upgrades are limited to a new pattern here on the front grille and a new bezel around the front fog light there. If you go for design trim or above, you'll also get these new bi-LED headlights, and on XL and GR Sport versions, they have an auto high beam assist. So that basically means you can leave them on full beam and not worry about dazzling other drivers. There are some new colours as well and some new alloy wheel designs, but otherwise, on the outside at least, it's pretty much as you were. And on first impressions, things are pretty similar on the inside here as well. The basic design of the interior is unchanged, so it's still very conservative, but feels really well put together. Look, there's barely any movement there at all. And a lot of the materials are very nice as well. So you've got some nice squidgy plastic on the dashboard, some leather type material here. And the controls, particularly those on the steering wheel and the dials for the air conditioning, they feel really solid and really well damped. So this might not look as modern, as interesting inside as the new Honda Civic, but in terms of build quality, it's at least as good, perhaps even a little bit better. There are some changes, including some new trim finishes and some new upholstery for the seats, but the big change is this new 10.5-inch infotainment system. Now, infotainment really held the Corolla back when this 12th generation version was launched back in 2018. At the start, it didn't even have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and when smartphone mirroring was introduced, you still had to put up a really small screen and some fiddly shortcut buttons there. So this is very welcome indeed. The screen's bigger, the graphics are better, and the operating system is much more user-friendly as well. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than the system you get in a lot of rivals in this class, including the Seat Leon and the Volkswagen Golf. The 12.3-inch digital driver display behind the steering wheel there has also been revamped, so it's now customizable, and you can choose between various settings, including casual, smart, sport, and tough, whatever that means. Anyway, the basic driving position is fundamentally unchanged, which is largely a good thing, because it means you get a comfortable driver's seat and a better view out than you do in the vast majority of rivals. That's thanks largely to these tall side windows here and these slim windscreen pillars. And all versions now come with front and rear parking sensors and a reversing camera as well. So that's really, really good. The only thing is, you do feel perched quite high up in the car, even with the driver's seat as low as it will go, as I've got it set to here. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you do feel lower down in cars like the Honda Civic and the Seat Leon, and a little bit more cocooned in the car. And both of those rivals are way better for anyone sitting in the back. As you can see, the main problem is knee room. I'm just over 6 foot. The seat in front is set up for my driving position, and well, not very comfortable at all, to be honest. Most cars in this class, but particularly the Leon and the Focus, have way more space. And that is something worth bearing in mind if you're looking at the Corolla as a proper family car. But if you only have young children, or you only need to put adults in the back occasionally, then this will be up to the job. As for the boot, well, it depends which version you go for, actually. If you go for the 2 litre, this is the space you'll get. And that's because there's no space for the 12-volt battery under the bonnet, so it's had to go under this boot floor instead, and that means the floor is quite high. That's also the case if you go for this 1.8 litre model and you spec a spare wheel. But as long as you don't do that, then the floor is much lower down. It means you get a lot more space, and we managed to fit 6 carry-on suitcases under the parcel shelf. The same number we managed to squeeze into the Honda Civic and the Seat Leon. So boot space is actually pretty good by the standards of the class. And if you need loads of luggage space, remember there's always the estate version called the Touring Sports. Now, the biggest problem with the 1.8 litre version of the old Corolla was its performance, or rather lack of. The best 0 to 60 time we managed to get out of the car at our test track here was 11 seconds. That's way slower than any Honda Civic, and even entry-level 1 litre versions of cars like the Volkswagen Golf and the Seat Leon. So let's find out how fast this new one is. Okay, so 0 to 60 in 9.3 seconds. Still not exactly a hot hatch, but quite a bit quicker than before. And importantly, this is no longer frustrating when you're out on faster A roads and motorways, which is a good thing. The bad news is that when you do accelerate, you still get what's probably best described as mooing. Allow me to demonstrate. So, do you see what I mean? That's because of the type of gearbox the Corolla has. It's called a CVT, and it means that when you put your foot down, the revs, they skyrocket and they stay high until you're up to the speed you want to be doing and you ease off the accelerator pedal. Toyota says it's done some work on improving the relationship between accelerator inputs and power delivery, but if I'm honest, if it has done, it hasn't made much of a difference. When you are up to speed though, the Corolla is actually a quiet cruiser. It recorded a lower decibel reading at 70 miles an hour than the Civic. There's less road noise than in that car, and there's less wind noise as well. And when you're around town, this is really quiet because it can run in EV mode for short distances as long as you're gentle with the accelerator pedal. So that's really, really good. And ride comfort is very impressive as well. This is definitely one of the most comfortable cars in the class, particularly if you go for 16 or 17-inch alloys. If you go for 18s, which come as standard on XL and GR Sport versions, then things are a little bit firmer, but this is still a more comfortable car than most versions of the Seat Leon, for example. The Leon is a bit more fun, so is the Focus for that matter, but the Corolla handles more than well enough. There's plenty of grip, not too much body lean through corners, and the steering is quite slow, but it's accurate and it gives you a reasonable sense of connection with the front wheels as well. So there are certainly no complaints about the way this car drives. But here's our take on how to spec the perfect Toyota Corolla. Go for the 1.8 litre version. Not only does it have a significantly bigger boot than the 2 litre, it's also around £1,700 cheaper like for like. And as a bonus, it's also slightly more efficient. We actually reckon entry-level Icon trim makes the most sense. Before this facelift, it didn't come with much equipment at all, but you now get all of the essentials. The only reason you might want to upgrade to design is that you get full LED headlights. On the Icon trim, only the dipped beams are LED. You also get an auto-dimming rear view mirror and rain-sensing wipers. Avoid XL and GL Sport versions. Yes, they're really well equipped and the GL Sport looks a bit more special as well, but we reckon if you've got that much money to spend, you'd be better off with something else. Apart from a spare wheel and metallic paint, the only real option on the Corolla is this sunroof, but we wouldn't bother. And remember I said the Corolla could be even cheaper to run than a fully electric car? Well, that's because in our real-world Trim PG tests, it managed almost 75 miles to the gallon in simulated town driving. Based on the price of petrol at the moment, that works out to almost exactly 9 pence per mile. In, say, an MG4, a similar sized, similar priced fully electric car, we've seen real-world efficiency of between 3.5 and 4 miles per kilowatt hour in typical urban driving, depending on how cold the weather is. Even if you charge up at home at the current electricity price cap, you'll be spending between 8.5 and 9.7 pence per mile to drive your MG4 around town, so fractionally more on average. And if you need to use public charging points, you can pretty much double those cost per mile figures. The Corolla isn't so efficient on the motorway, and in our tests averaged just under 40 mpg. That's not bad, but plenty of non-hybrid petrol and diesel cars can better this. So as always, you need to choose the car that's right for the type of driving you do most often. Check out our True MPG site to find out the real-world fuel economy of your next new car. It might not look much different from before, but the changes to the Corolla have made it an even more compelling family car. In fact, the only reason not to buy one of these is potentially the new Honda Civic. We reckon that's an even better all-rounder. It's slightly nicer inside, it's a bit more practical, and it's faster as well. But it isn't entirely one-way traffic because the Corolla is a bit more efficient and it should prove more reliable as well. But for lots more information on the Corolla, head over to our website whatcar.com to read our detailed written review. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, we'd really appreciate it if you'd give it a like, leave us a comment below if you've got any questions about this car, and other than that, we'll see you next time.